What is up, guys? I'm Silas Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here at the Pump Chasers Gym, and your boy is pumped because I get to pull sumo today. So, for those of you who are not aware, I pretty much pulled sumo for a year and a half before ever going to conventional. I went to conventional, I want to say, around the end of last year, like around November or so. So, other than that time Vanessa and Lydia came down, I pulled sumo with them. I think the last time you guys saw me pull sumo was literally 7 months ago when I first started my channel. So, it's been a while. Anyway, long story short, conventional is still my main lift. It is my competition lift, and it's what I use on Tuesdays, which is my higher intensity, you know, purely like strength focused day. And Thursdays is still deadlift oriented and posterior chain focused, but everything is like lighter weight, higher reps. It's more about variation and volume. So I get to choose my variation of deadlift, and I'm going with sumos because I just want to reincorporate it, get back used to the movement because it always felt more natural than conventional anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Gonna take you guys with me. I think I might do something today where it's like, you know, I work out and talk to you guys because there's really like nobody here. Like I came out of, well, not so much a great time. I like when everyone else is here too, but for the sake of this, for like, you know, talking to you guys so we can really connect, I feel like it's gonna be just better for the video. So yeah, gonna work out, gonna bring up some topics, answer some questions that you guys have like had that I've gotten over and over again, and kind of just make it like a workout slash informative video. Anyway, gonna get warmed up and get started. Let's go. Alright guys, so we currently have 315 pounds on the bar. Once again, it's a lighter day. Even so, I could probably still do a little bit heavier than this, but once again, I haven't pulled sumo consistently in a while. I just want to make sure I get the form down, everything's on point, etc. So 315 pounds is a good place to start. I've got 3 sets of 7. First thing I kind of want to talk to you guys about as far as like, you know, more informative topics is this mindset that powerlifting is all about just ego lifting, like just going as heavy as you can. You don't hear about form. That's, guys, that's insane. Like you guys, not just me, a lot of you guys think that I'm like the exception, but any decent powerlifter understands the importance of proper form because one, it's hard to have proper execution of a lift without proper form. If you're not keeping everything tight, keeping everything right, then you're probably gonna fail the lift or at least complete it way slower than what you really want it to be. And two is understanding the fact that just because we lift heavy, guys, doesn't mean that we don't have volume work as well. Like I already have done several videos in the past before about the, you know, importance of things like concurrent periodization, where we have intensity days and volume days, or daily undulating periodization, where you work with various rep ranges, and how at the end of the day, so long as you're progressively overloading, you're gonna get stronger, you're gonna put on size. But for powerlifters specifically, volume days are very important for us, just for the fact that one, we can't go heavy every day all the time because we're gonna wear ourselves out, or worse, lead to injury from overuse. So days like this, we work on variations or have more volume, are good because it allows us to get the movements in, to still work up on building up our strength, but we're not going balls to the wall all the time. So that's a common misconception, guys. Get out of your heads. This mindset that like bodybuilders are all about proper form and powerlifters aren't is insane to me, especially when you look at the amount of bodybuilders who like don't do complete range of motion, or, you know, do a bunch of cheat reps, things like that, because that doesn't fly in powerlifting. Like there are rules to how we are able to perform the lifts. Anyway, let's get into this first working set. Alright guys, so first set went pretty well. I noticed that I kind of had the camera a bit too low so you guys couldn't see like everything, but you can pretty much get an idea of what the form looks like. I'll make sure to show you at least one or both of the remaining sets so that you can see what the form is actually supposed to look like from the ground up. Whew, sorry, 7 reps is a lot on deadlifts, man. Like, that's tiring. Your boys gotta get his conditioning up. Anyway, next thing I want to tell you guys about is, should you pull sumo or conventional? Because that's a common question I also get. People ask me all the time, hey, why'd you go to conventional? Why'd you stop doing sumo? So pretty much, guys, I stopped doing sumo during a time where I was squatting every day just because I hit a stall where I couldn't get past 485 pounds for max on my deadlifts. Now, granted, I think that may have been the fact that I was deadlifting, not deadlift, squatting every day. And sumo is more of a, I guess you could say, leg dominant lift compared to conventional, depending on how you look at it. Like some parts of the quad get worked a little bit more due to knee flexion, but overall, you can say the quads get worked more conventional because it's a long range of motion. But things like your hips, glutes, and hamstrings definitely get a little bit more activation on the sumo. So you factor that in with the fact that I was squatting every day, and pretty much, you know, it makes sense that I hit a stall. So I went to conventional for that reason. But then I found that despite never really training conventional and having really crappy form, like even by what I'm doing now, like really crappy form, I was still able to break through that plateau relatively easily. So I kind of stuck with it, used it for my last meet, and now I'm pulling in the 500s for maxes with the conventional deadlift. So that's why I'm sticking with it for my main lift. I thought about going back to sumo, but anyway, to the actual question, guys. Long story short, if you're powerlifting, you want to go with whatever feels best. It's okay if you work on both, but for your main competition lift, you want to go with whatever allows you to lift the most possible weight, because that is the goal in powerlifting. Outside of that, I'm almost always going to tell people to use conventional. For one, even though yes, conventional and sumo work pretty much the same muscle groups, the degree to which they work certain groups is a little bit different. Like I said, the hips, glutes, and hamstrings get a little bit more on sumo, but all in all, you're gonna get more bang for your buck as far as overall hypertrophy, muscular development with the conventional. It hits overall more muscles, it hits them more effectively due to the longer range of motion and due to just the positioning of your feet and everything like that. And on top of that, guys, is understanding that if you're involved in any type of athletics, and I actually just went over this on Instagram the other day, you're definitely gonna wanna make sure that you're pulling conventional, because it has better carryover to athletics. Conventional is all about being powerful, strong, explosive off the ground. It's not just how much you can lift, but how fast you can lift it. And power is gonna have better carryover to your athletics than just strength alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, strength is important, but even if you can pull, say, 405 pounds with sumo, but you can only pull maybe 385 with conventional, you working with that as far as speed is gonna get better carryover to your athletic performance than sumo. So all in all, at the end of the day, pull however you want, but if you have to choose one and you're not a power lifter and you don't pull more with sumo, probably go with conventional. Anyway, I'm gonna show you guys the next couple sets, then we'll go to our next movement. So all in all, that set felt pretty good. Obviously a little bit rougher than the first one, just because, you know, it's the second set, right? But it doesn't feel foreign. Like, I definitely feel it way more in my glutes, hips, and hamstrings than what I'm used to with conventional, but it doesn't feel foreign in the sense of I have felt this before. So all in all, not too bad. Anyway, next thing I want to tell you guys about is, as you guys can see, I'm not wearing a belt. A lot of you often ask me, like, hey, so you've brought up, you know, beltless training before, but how exactly do you go about doing that? How do you incorporate that? And even though it occurred to me that I answer a lot of these questions through Instagram, like I do a little Instagram video, which will actually be following me at TheSwolefessor on Instagram, if you currently are not. You know, shameless plug. But anyway, there's lots of ways you can go about it, guys. So one thing is understanding that obviously you're gonna lift more weight with your belt than without. Now, how much more is gonna depend on how much beltless training you actually do. If you don't do any beltless training, then the gap is gonna be huge. But if you do incorporate beltless training, it won't be quite that dramatic. So there's a few ways you can go about it, as I mentioned. The first is gonna be simply knowing that, hey, if you're gonna work with the exact same weight or close to it, that you're probably gonna get fewer reps, but that's okay. The second thing is simply decrease the weight and then go for the same reps. For example, if you do 3 sets of 5 with, say, 350 on a certain movement belted, then maybe go down to something like 320, 325, or even 315, depending on how big that gap is for you, and still do 3 sets of 5. Or you can do something like what I'm doing, where, you know, it's lighter weight than what my usual deadlifts are, but I'm also still doing more reps to really force me to engage my core more. You can even work on doing things like pause work. For example, if you do pause deadlifts or pause overhead press, where you pause at the very top and then pause at the very bottom, and you do that beltless, it really forces your core to be engaged. Because for those of you who don't know, obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but standing movements are gonna engage your core a whole lot more than seated movements, because your core is forced to stabilize you when you're pushing weight over your head, or when you're pulling weight off the ground, or if you're doing a bent over barbell row and you're having to keep yourself stabilized. So doing different things like that, there's lots of ways to go about it. The point is to just make sure you do it, guys. Whether it's you do it on your volume days, since it's not as heavy, so you maybe won't need your belt as much, or if you still do it for like heavier days, but just know you're probably not gonna do quite as much weight. Either or works. Just make sure you incorporate it, because you want want to make sure that your core is getting all that good stimulation and engagement. Because think about it, if you can get your beltless sets even stronger, it's only going to help you more when you do put the belt on for competition or when you're chasing numbers or anything of that nature. Anyway, let's get to this last set. My glutes are on fire. Anyway guys, we got weighted chin-ups next. So on Tuesday, it was weighted pull-ups, neutral grip for 3 sets of 5 with 140 pounds. So today, we're doing weighted chin-ups for 3 sets of 10. Probably gonna work with anywhere from 100 to 115 pounds. I'll fill it out and see. Anyway, you guys already know I've pretty much beaten the topic like a dead horse as far as the pull-ups. I've done an entire video over like, a full pull-up tutorial and breakdown, addressing all the myths and misconceptions behind the movement, behind chin-ups, and like I said, probably one of the best videos I've ever done. So if you're curious about that, you can just YouTube TheSwolefessor pull tutorial. You guys can leave the comments down below, those of you who've seen it, what you thought about it, and if it's worth checking out or not. But one thing that I wanted to address, or maybe make clear, is the understanding that the pull-up, guys, is not some magical exercise. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people have taken things that I've said and gone to the extreme of like, if you're not doing pull-ups, you're not gonna maximize your back gains. That is not the case, guys. Pull-ups are great because, as you guys know, I love those bang for your buck movements. It's a good movement because of the various things you're working at once, as far as it hits so many parts of the back, hits the bicep, engages the core. If you're doing chin-ups, works the upper pecs. It hits so many muscle groups at once, and that's why it's so beneficial. Plus, as I have mentioned, there is a different effect that calisthenics have on our body, whether you're doing just body weight or weighted. Moving your body through space just has a different type of effect than just, moving weight itself when you're moving your body through space. With that being said, you can still maximize your back gains without pull-ups. It just may take you longer. That's the thing, guys. There's no magical exercise or workout or lift that just is gonna trump any other as far as maximizing your gains. Meaning, even if you're doing a completely crappy exercise, right, that doesn't work. Let's say you're doing a movement for your chest and it only works the chest 50% as well as something like the bench press or dips. You can still maximize your chest hypertrophy using that movement. It's just gonna take you longer. That's my thing, guys. I'm all about being efficient. I'm all about giving you guys all of your options, but I always let you know which option is the most optimal. That's why if you have to choose between, say, doing pull-ups or lat pull-down, I would say pull-ups. You can still maximize your lat gains doing lat pull-downs, but it's probably gonna take longer. You're probably gonna have to do a bunch of extra movements to help bring up other parts of the back, like your rhomboids, your traps, etc. Whereas you may have to do that with the pull-ups, but not to the same degree. So I just wanna make that clear, guys, that anytime somebody's like, yo, man, I found this exercise and suddenly my arms blew up or my legs blew up, it's probably because they either weren't doing enough workload to stimulate as much growth beforehand, and now they incorporated that movement they are, or they were doing a movement that simply didn't stimulate as much. Maybe, like I said, 50% of the new movement they're doing now. That's all. They still would have reached that point eventually. It just would have taken them longer. Anyway, let's get started with chin-ups. All right, guys, so first set went pretty well. I'm starting with the 105 pounds. I think I'm gonna stick with that for the day, guys, just because even though I was at the point on my last program where I think my sets of 10, I was on 115 pounds. That was with pull-ups, and even though chin-ups incorporate more biceps, so you can usually do a bit more weight, a few more reps, I'm not used to doing weighted chin-ups. So I'm gonna start with the 105 and just gradually let it build back up, probably back to 115 within the next week or two. Anyway, next thing I wanna talk to you guys about is biceps, specifically mine. Not to be self-absorbed or anything, no, but a lot of you asked questions about what have I done for bicep growth? And I've explained, heavy pull-ups, rows, heavy curls, the basic stuff that you guys know as just progressively overloading those movements, that you actually put a focus on those compounds, like your heavy pulls, whether it's pull-ups barbell rows, T-bar rows, whatever, because you're gonna be able to move a whole lot more weight on those than you are on, say, a curl. And then, you know, do things like curls as needed to help bring your biceps up. But a lot of you have been asking more about like the shape. And as I've explained, once again, had a whole video over this, over what genetics do and don't affect. You can't change the shape of your muscle, guys. No matter what you do, no matter what type of drugs you may even hop on, that's one thing that you can't do. You can't change the shape of your muscle. It's anatomically fixed. It's just due to your genetics. And there's really nothing you can do about it, guys. So don't buy into that stuff. When people are like, oh, this is gonna help mold or shape your bicep, don't take those terms the wrong way. When someone says like, oh, we're gonna mold, they just mean like, you know, let's say you've been bulking, right? Just building mass. And then they say, okay, now we're gonna mold or sculpt you. It just means that you're gonna start cutting. You're gonna lower your body fat percentage to see kind of what's there. Different exercises that you do aren't gonna change the shape of your muscles. All resistance training does is increase the size of your muscles. That's it. There's no special exercise that you can do to change what your muscle or what your like looks like, or where your muscle belly is inserted or anything like that. So just keeping that in mind. Gonna knock out these next 2 sets, then go to our next movement. All right, guys, so let's talk about rest time next, because that's a question that's been asked several times that I don't think I've ever really addressed at all. So rest time kind of depends. A lot of people just do the rest time based off their rep ranges, but there's more to it than that, because most people have the mindset of like, okay, if you're doing lower reps, then you're gonna rest, you know, 2-5 minutes, because your focus is like, you know, strength, and then you're gonna rest, you know, for short periods of time when you're doing higher reps. And that makes sense, it's partially true, but like I said, there's more to it than that. So basically, it depends on what you're doing, not just your rep ranges, but like why you're doing something. For example, whenever I'm doing an intensity day, let's say I have regular sets of, you know, 3, 5, or even something like sets of 7, where my goal is I'm trying to make sure I hit every single rep nice and clean, then I'm gonna take longer rests, you know, anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes between sets, because the goal is not so much fatiguing myself. The goal is making sure that I'm completing these reps, doing the best I can to hit all of them efficiently. Whereas, let's say I'm doing something, you know, like where the goal is just, I'm trying to wear myself out due to metabolic fatigue, then I'm gonna have very short rests, anywhere from like, you know, a minute to no more than a minute and a half. Because the point is like, you know, just really get those muscles burning, really burn them out due to metabolic fatigue. And that's where it kind of correlates with the rep range, because obviously high rep ranges is probably gonna lead to more metabolic fatigue, whereas you're working with lower rep ranges, then hopefully you're not trying to do it to like, you know, grind out reps. You're trying to, you know, be strong, powerful, and efficient. So the way that I like to go about it is whenever it's a strength focused day, on my compound movements, I'm resting anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. On my isolation movements, because even on my isolation movements on a strength focused day, I still go relatively heavy, I'll rest no more than 2 minutes. If it's a day where it's like something like today, not literally today, just because, you know, talking to you guys, the rest time's gonna be a little bit longer, which I'm okay with, but I'll maybe do something like, you know, no more than 2 minutes on my compound movements, then no more than a minute on my isolation movements, whenever it's like, you know, more volume, high rep work. So that's how I go about my rest times. It's pretty much just based upon your goals. So for those of you who are wondering, I'm doing my lower back extensions just my body weight starting out, because I have not done those in years. So I'll just gradually add weight as the weeks go by. Anyway, we're just talking about rest time. So let's kind of pick up from there, because a lot of people ask me, whenever I emphasize progressive overload, I always emphasize, you know, weight, reps, volume, things like that to progressively overload. But I don't put so much emphasis on rest time. Why is that? Because it's a decreasing rest time a valid way of progressive overloading. And it is, but it's just very limited in nature, guys. Like, unless you're doing rest time like, you know, 5 minutes, then yeah, you know, you could every couple weeks take 10, 20, 30 seconds away. But let's say you're doing high volume metabolic fatigue work and you're already only resting, say like a minute, minute and a half. Well, if you progressively overload by taking your time away, what are you gonna do when you get to like 20, 10 seconds worth of rest? It's gonna be really hard to progress on weight or reps if you're not getting sufficient rest time. And that's gonna benefit you way more as far as adding weight to the bar or doing more reps with the same weight or adding an extra set for volume. That's gonna benefit your overall growth more than decreasing your rest time. So it's not that decreasing rest time isn't a valid way of progressively overloading. Once again, it's just not optimal. You guys know I'm all about giving your options and then tell you what's optimal. Anyway, next movement. Guys, finishing off this video in the back of the warehouse just because Dron showed up. He's got a client, they're blasting music, they're getting it in. I'm not trying to, like, you know, interrupt the video. I'm not trying to interrupt them either. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Oh, last little tidbit, guys, is last thing I want to talk about is genetics. All right, like I said, I've already done a video over what all genetics do and don't affect, but I feel like when I did that video, a lot of people took it the wrong way. They take it as now when they see someone who's maybe bigger than them or stronger than them, they're so quick to be like, oh, well, he probably has better muscle insertions, or, you know, his genetics allow him to do this, blah, blah, blah. But that was not the point of that video, guys. The point of that video was to understand that there's nothing you can do about your genetics. What you have is what you have, you know what I'm saying? It does you no good worrying about the next person. Focus on working with what you got. Like, I hate that mentality. It's just like people who, like, get pissed off at people that maybe, like, are born with a little bit more money, or, you know, came from a richer background, and, like, they hate on them. But at the end of the day, no matter what you have or don't have, it's about taking what you've got and making the most of it. Like, somebody who's born with a lot can lose in the end if they aren't consistent in doing what they need to do. It's the same thing with someone with good genetics. I don't care how good or bad your genetics are. It doesn't mean anything if you're not busting your ass off consistently in the gym, if you're not doing what you need to as far as your diet. And just understand the fact, guys, that at the end of the day, like, you don't really know what someone's muscle insertions are, right? Like, it's like, unless I cut you open, you can't really tell, like, oh, he can bench because of this or deadlift because of this. Like, you have an idea, but you don't really know for sure, so why worry about it? Like, at the end of the day, hating on other people because they have good or bad genetics isn't going to help you. And the term good and bad genetics is just stupid in and of itself. Really think about it. Like, good for what? People only use that in the sense of bodybuilding, because, like, okay, I have horrible calf genetics for bodybuilding. My calves are really high, but guess what? They are really good for sprinting, great for athletics. So it's like, it's just this whole mindset of good and bad genetics. No, they're your genetics. Don't hate your genetics. Don't hate part of who you are. It's part of who you are. Like, there's no one that has the same genetics as you. Just make the most of what you've got. If you have to do a little bit extra work on your calves or your forearms or biceps, chest, whatever, oh well. Like, at the end of the day, even if you can objectively point out that, yeah, this guy has better genetics than I do for whatever muscle group, how is pointing that out and hitting on him going to help you? And there's nothing wrong with looking at it for scientific purposes, because it's interesting. That's why I made that whole video over what it does and doesn't affect. But at the end of the day, regardless, you have to understand that if you're spending that much time worrying about the next guy, you're shortchanging yourself. So that's the last thing I want to talk to you guys about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this is really different. I don't really do videos like this, and I literally was coming up with each topic, like, while I'm doing a working something. All right, what am I going to talk about next? But I just was in the mood for it. Just want to change things up. This is an informative based channel, but I want it to be entertaining and enjoyable for you guys as well. So hopefully this kind of helped out with that. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you did not enjoy the video, leave a comment down below. Let me know what can we get better. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch y'all later.